Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Groover. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Kathy Groover.
And I'm Jason Mefford. Hey, with the holidays coming up, we thought, because this is never a stressful period of time for anybody, we thought we'd take just and do a quick episode to help you, because I know December is usually, it's one of two things. It's either like crazy busy, you feel like you're just on fire, or it's a slow time at work and it's kind of like, hey, this is cool, I can get caught up, right? So at work, it's one of those two, but usually in everybody's personal life, it's still, I'm running around with, with my head cut off on fire kind of a thing. So wanted to give you some tips to reduce the stress level that you may be feeling during this holiday time.
Sorry, my Capricorn is taking notes.
Capricorn is taking notes. Well, and it's funny because, one of the kind of traditions that I have each year, we go through and watch certain holiday movies. And, one of my favorites is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
And, part of that is because, again, this whole idea, and maybe this is kind of my first tip, is I can relate to that character. Okay. Because growing up, having 4 kids, suburbia, perfect, kind of stuff, right? As the dad, you're always trying to make these memories. We're going to go out and we're going to chop down a Christmas tree together and make these memories. And
because we're Griswold.
Because we're the Griswold family, right? And we're going to put millions of lights on our house, and I'm just going to have the perfect Christmas, right? Because that's what I want to provide for my family. And, one of the scenes that I loved in that movie is at the end, when everything just flies off everything that can go wrong goes wrong. And Clark's talking to his dad and he said, Dad, you did such a great job. How did you do this? And he said, I had a lot of help from Jack Daniels. And, the whole idea that, first tip is don't try to make everything so perfect or try to force that perfection, because something's going to go wrong and it's okay. The funny thing is those things that are not perfect are the things that actually make the memories that you'll laugh about and talk about for years to come.
Yep.
So, to maybe lower your expectations a little bit, that everything doesn't have to be perfect. That by itself is going to help you reduce some of that stress and tension.
Absolutely. And that is one of the ones I wrote down was obligations. Yeah, we have to go to so-and-so's party and we're having people here and I've got to buy all these gifts and I've got to do you really? Make it simpler. Don't do a gift for every single person Maybe do a Secret Santa, or maybe say you're not doing gifts this year, or maybe do, there's ways to decrease those obligations. And then the other thing about obligations is so often that's in our own head. That's what nobody else expects from us. So, what do you actually have to do versus what have you imposed on your own self that you think you have to do? So those are two different things. And if there's stuff that you have to do, delegate that stuff. Can you have your husband wrap the gifts while you're making the dinner? Can you have the kids walk the dog while you're cleaning the house? There are ways to delegate those things. Now, everybody is busy around the holidays typically, but I had a friend who was leaving town and she was kind of freaking out because no one was around to take care of her cats. And I said, I'm not going anywhere. You'd come in on Christmas morning and take care of the cats? Yeah, I don't have kids. I don't have a spouse. I'm sitting here. Well, of course I will. So she would not have thought to ask me because she didn't want to impose on somebody else that she thought was going to be so busy. Ask for help. Delegate those things. So that was one of my tips.
Yeah. So what else you got, Kathy?
Oh, I have a whole list.
I know you have a whole list.
Thank you. And I just cross this off right now. Breathe. breathing, the second we take that deep breath, signals to our brain that everything's okay, because we're in that fight or flight response. The breathing is one of the first things that starts to go. Either we pant and we sort of hyperventilate a little bit because we're in fear, we're in that fight or flight, or we hold our breath. And then throughout the course of the day, you see these people in your office kind of going, gasping for like a fish that fell out of the fish tank. And you're like, are you okay, Beth? Because Beth is a freaking mess. Beth is always, she's nice, but she's a mess. So just do that breath. Just pause and take that breath. That is going to solve so many problems. And it's so funny that you mentioned Jack Daniels, because the fourth on my list is don't overindulge.
Yeah, don't overindulge.
Don't get shit-faced at the Christmas party. Don't get wasted before you go to your parents' house. I know sometimes it's like, I have friends that are like, if it wasn't for the edible, I wouldn't have got through Thanksgiving. Take the edge off if you need to, but don't get wasted because you think the political conversation last year at Christmas was bad. Wait till everybody had too much to drink. It's not going to end well. Someone's going to get physically or emotionally hurt, and you don't need to deal with that next Christmas. So that was on my list too. So,
yeah, some of the stress carries forward from previous times, right?
Oh yeah.
So don't overindulge. And I just wanted to follow up on your breathing as well, because I think, some of the people that are listening to this might say, come on, Kathy, I remember to breathe. Well, I don't. Okay. I mean, because as you were saying that, I was like embarrassed. Sometimes I get embarrassed a little bit. I've been in therapy sessions where the person is like, Jason, you need to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, what do you mean I'm not breathing? Or your breath gets really shallow and we don't realize it. And so, taking that time to just breathe in deeply and out, even if it's just for 4 or 5 breaths, and take 20 seconds to do it.
Yep.
You will feel a shift in your body.
Yep.
Right? You'll get the little shivers, you'll get the goose flesh, you get whatever you call it, but you'll get some release and you'll feel an energy shift in your body when you do that. And sometimes that's all it takes, right? And even if you're in the middle of, and there's chaos in the kitchen and there's stuff going everywhere, right? Stop for 15 seconds. And you're going to be able to deal better with the rest of the stuff.
Yep. The other thing it does is it changes our mind, and it reminds us to be in this present moment, because it's really difficult to truly concentrate on your breath, that inhale and that exhale, and be someplace else. And it tends to be that past and that future that freaks us out so much. So pausing and taking that breath anchors us back in this present moment, so that we're not dwelling on what happened last Christmas or worried about, what happens when Mary shows up and,
Yeah, because that's why another one of my tips that I was going to bring up too is that, again, it's the worrying about things that haven't actually happened. Yep. Like you said, if you've got, an uncle or whoever, I mean, because again, you sit around the table and, at least in our house, it usually ends up turning to like, dirty jokes kind of things instead of politics. At my house. When I'm at other family members' homes, it's not necessarily that way. But inevitably, a lot of people they get stressed out, or they're worried about, Uncle so and so is going to say something or is going to do something. Well, don't let Uncle so and so have any control over your psyche until he actually does that.
That leads right to mind.
Because if you're worried about it for 2 weeks, then you've already lost a lot of your positive energy. Just wait. You know what? Maybe Uncle so-and-so is going to have a cold at the last minute and he never comes. Or, he doesn't go off like he normally does, right? So don't add stress to yourself before something has happened, right? And I remember I was telling somebody last night, I won't say who, but it's like they were kind of nervous and concerned about something, and it's like, why are you worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet?
Because
you don't know that that's what's going to happen.
Why suffer twice?
If
it's going to happen bad, you can't change it, you can't stop it, you can't control it. If it's a bad thing in the future, there might be suffering. Why are you dragging it around with you now? But this is so perfect. I'm so glad you said that, because that actually leads to one of mine, which is switch your expectation. Because if you go into it once again going, oh God, Uncle Joe's going to get drunk and he's going to go off on politics and we're going to have a fight like we do every year. Go in and treat Uncle Joe differently. Because if you present yourself differently, he can't react to you the same way. So switch ego states. We just talked about this in other shows. Switch ego states. Show up as somebody else. Don't show up already cranky that you got to see this guy. It's so funny. So my ex-husband's family, part of them is very, very Christian. I'm not. So every year in my stocking, there was a Bible thing or a book on God or a CD of Why Did You Fall Away from Jesus? And it was like, oh, my motherfucking, seriously. So it was driving me crazy because I'm like, look, don't be passive aggressive. If you want to sit down and talk to me about religion, I am more than happy to do that. You're not going to change my mind, and you're absolutely not going to change my mind by slipping little like devious religious things into my stocking. So as we were driving up to the house that year, I was sitting in the car and I was going through this whole thing in my head, and I finally said, do I have permission to say anything I want to your family? And he goes, yep. Love that about him. And I went, okay, I can't guarantee it's going to end well. And he goes, whatever.
Okay.
And I went, all right. He goes, what's going on? And I said, the whole fucking Jesus thing. That's so inappropriate for me to say. But anyway, it was driving me crazy. It's, you know, it's like, don't be insidious about it. Like, let's have an adult conversation. And I said, I swear to God, if there's something in my stocking, I've got a monologue planned. I'm going to stand up in front of everybody and I'm going to say, please stop doing this. This is not cool. Is that okay with you? And he goes, yep. Like, yay. So I get this whole thing built up. I'm so excited. I'm ready to have this speech. I open my stocking and there's nothing in it that has had anything to do with God. And I was like, because I had got myself worked into this state that I was so ready to do this speech. And I didn't get to do it.
Well, because probably what happened is he went into his family. He's like, don't put any Jesus stuff in your stocking or we're going to get...
No, he wouldn't have done that.
No.
It was, you know, I had this, it was that why suffer twice thing, except I went the opposite way. I had this expectation that everything was going to be exactly the same. And I built myself into this like rebellious, I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
There was nothing to tell. So it's like that, again, that has to do with that staying present and shifting who you are. I had shifted who I was to handle the situation differently, and then the situation was completely different. So yeah, there's that lesson in that. I still have the monologue though. I'll use it someday.
You'll use it someday. Well, and even with the, you know, the whole idea, because one of the things that you just brought up there too is, you know, they're not going to change your opinion. Mm-mm. And so we need to realize that as well. You know, if Uncle Joe shows up and he starts going off about whatever political view and he's offending you and everybody else in the room, it doesn't do a lot of good to just argue with Uncle Joe.
Nope.
Okay. So try to change the subject, try to do something else, but it's not gonna, you're not gonna change his mind, and all you're gonna do is get pissed off and you're gonna get mad. And so instead, you know, obviously you disagree with Uncle Joe, whoever poor Uncle Joe is, right? You know,
he's a jerk.
He's a jerk.
Yeah.
So any of you that are named Joe, we're sorry. We know you're not Uncle Joe.
Well, once Sally left him, I mean, he just, everything went to hell.
Everything
the kid with the drug problem and, you know. So.
Yeah. But, okay. The stuff is just going through my mind right now. But anyway, we got to get back because this is a short episode.
Bring it back.
Bring it back.
Bring your Capricorn back in.
Okay. There's not much in there. No, so with Uncle Joe, right? I mean, if we're disagreeing with him, if we're arguing with him, it's because we don't agree. We're different about that. So instead, try to talk to Uncle Joe about something that you're the same about. Get him to talk about himself in some other way. You know, most of the time, again, I mean, I love older people and just sitting around and talking to, I know as we're getting older, I like old people.
It's so funny.
No, but
I
just
like older people. Okay, good.
But just to actually, you know, listen to
yes.
Some of the stories and the things that they've lived through. And it's like, holy smokes, right? I mean, I've just learned, one guy that I knew, his dad knew Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, right? They used to come in and swap horses, right, on their runs. And I mean, it was kind of like, I just sat there in like awe of this guy, you know, because he was a World War I vet, and I mean, all this kind of stuff, right? So find something to talk about that's not going to be polarizing, and that's usually the other person.
Yep.
Or, you know, trying to find something like that, because again, you can have these great, aha learning experiences and other stuff like that from doing that. Instead of seeing Uncle Joe as the old crabby bastard, that is just that guy.
Yeah. Well, and what did Mike Mandel say? Treat them like pretend they're the most fascinating person in the world, and then pretend they're not pretending.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the deal, and this will probably be our last tip, but I think this is the best one. So if we're in a situation that we don't like, if something's happening that is not pleasing us, we only have 3 options. Change the situation, asking about something else, changing the subject. Change ourselves, which we can absolutely do, going in as a different person, or leave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about leaving. Take a time out. If you cannot handle it anymore, take a time out. Go back to your hotel room, suggest a walk, go into the bathroom for 5 minutes. There is a way for you to escape. And I've said that to so many people and they go, well, we're all staying in the same house. Really? Do they come in the bathroom with you? You can't have 3 minutes to go.
Yep.
And, one thing that I used to do is I'd say, oh, you know what? I've got to return a couple emails. Just give me 15 minutes. I'm so sorry, but I've got, running my own business. I've got work to do. Whether or not I needed to return emails for 15 minutes, it got me away from everybody, where I could decompress, where I could read a comic book, where I could chat online, where I could do something that would get me back into that place where I was going to go in feeling healthy. So if you start to feel yourself going, don't let yourself go. Remove yourself from the situation. And sometimes that's, we would always go for walks. Like, hey, okay, after dinner, who wants to go for a walk? Because 1, we needed to get out of the stifling hot house. And 2, it was, you just wanted to get away from some people, and as an only child, I mean, I am an not optimist. What the hell's the word? Extrovert. Jesus. I'm an extrovert until I'm not. And when I hit my limit, I need to sit in the corner by myself for a while, so know yourself and know those limits and those boundaries. And if you need to take a time out, give yourself a time out. It's okay. You're allowed.
Yeah. And that's especially important for those of us that are introverted, to realize, because the same thing, right? You're, you've got to be extroverted in some of these social situations. Yep. But again, you realize, or that maybe you need to put yourself in timeout.
Yep.
If you will. And so just take that time again. There's nothing wrong with walking around the block, going outside for a few minutes, locking yourself in the bathroom for a few minutes.
Just
whatever.
A few minutes, please.
Just a few minutes, because everybody needs to use it too.
Not like Uncle Joe, who's in there for like an hour. I don't know what
Yeah. All right. Quick episode, but again,
Woo-hoo.
Hopefully,
and I went through everything crossed off.
Yes. So, if you need to go back, listen to this again, but don't have the same stresses that you had last holiday season. Make it less stressful. Think of some of these tips that we've talked about, which ones work for you. Try to incorporate at least one of them this year, and make this end of the year, start of the new year holiday season a great one that actually energizes you and gets you ready for next year, which is going to be amazing.
Oh, it's coming so fast.
I know.
Coming so fast.
But 2020, we will have clear vision. But okay, that was my bad joke. I'll work on the delivery.
I watched your gesture pop out for just a second.
Yeah, it did. Now it's got to go back in.
Stick it back in.
Put it back in.
All right, everybody. I hope you have a phenomenal holiday, whatever you are celebrating. I hope it is exactly what you want it to be, whether it's a quiet night at home or a gigantic party with all of your friends and family, including Uncle Joe. I'm Kathy Groover, and I can be reached at kathygroover.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So we'll catch you on a future episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.